love to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show.
This is a chat with Jay, part 2, with Wazza King, the leader, the spiritual leader of the West Coast Eagles. He loves that one. The West Coast Eagles Next Generation on Facebook, and obviously Eagle Nation podcast, which is how many episodes you done there, my friend? How many? I can't remember.
This is pretty 7 for 8th year, so you times that by at least 24. So, and then a few others when you win finals and stuff like that. So yeah, it's quite a lot.
A lot.
Sometimes we've missed. Some of the best ones we couldn't even put there because they didn't record properly. And had to do them again. People have asked for a blooper one, but I lost all my files. I had to get a new computer, new systems and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a good ride. So
you're doing well. I'm
still doing it. I didn't think I'd come back this season, but I did. So yeah, we'll give it one more shot and see how it goes, and hopefully we have a bit more success and have a bit more positive stuff to say instead of talking about losses for the last 4 years.
Well, this is the thing. What I want to ask you, mate, I mean, we're talking about AFL, so this is mainly about the AFL side because this man is very knowledgeable on I just wanted to find out regarding the expansion of the AFL with Australian Football League. Sorry, I'm talking to my friends in Canada and everywhere else. When they expanded and got the Fremantle Dockers in, I know, look, it's a touchy subject for some people, but as being what was it all about, like, for you guys being absolutely in it and going, hang on, there's another team down the road across the water, and it was pretty big in WA, obviously. They're huge clubs. What was the talk back there in 95? If I'm correct, 95. Yeah, 95 when they came in. What was it? How did it feel for you?
It didn't really matter for me because I hated Fremantle and the Waffle. So I hated South Fremantle and East Fremantle.
Fantastic.
So when they come about, it didn't really matter to me. It was good because it gave Eagles, it just wasn't a one-team town. Eagles lost a lot of supporters because people used to support Eagles because they were WA. Some people didn't go for Eagles at all. They stayed with the VFL, the Victorian Footy League teams. But yeah, I used to support Essendon, but you only saw them once a week, and that was on a Sunday night on a show called The Winners. That shows you my age, how old I am.
No, The Winners, yes, we got a few of those ones.
And the only teams you saw were the teams that were winning, and obviously the teams that were smashing. And you know, a lot of my family went for Saints and Geelong, and at that time they were getting smashed. So I went for the team that was smashing, which was Essendon. But then when the Eagles come in, I was WA, so I went for them straight away. But if it had been Fremantle coming in before the Eagles, I wouldn't have gone for them. That's how much I hated Fremantle. And I probably still hate Fremantle to this day like that. I'm
wearing a purple, but you know what it is.
But in saying that, it was good for WA footy, Western Australian footy, for those people overseas, because, the VFL/AFL, which really peeves a lot of WA people off because it is AFL now. But, we
know this.
This is the main thing. West Coast and Freo fans probably get more peeved off with them talking about, Collingwood's won 16 VFL grand finals. You know what I mean? Like, hello, they've won 2 or 3, whatever it is, in AFL, you know what I mean, since 1990. So, but that, that's the way it is. You had a bigger demographic, 10 teams still in Victoria. It's still run like the VFL. But
yeah, we could say what we want on this for things. So we could say
my question is, to answer your question, it didn't really worry me too much about Fremantle coming in. They probably didn't get the respect they were given. They wanted to go something different. They wanted to do something different. And if they had got their wishes, they probably would have been a more successful team straight up because they would have got the rights to Benny Cousins, Daniel Kerr, and all those guys, Simon Black, at Brisbane. There's a lot of people out of Fremantle that come from, half the West Coast champions are Fremantle players, We'll
have a look. Yeah, you got Glenn Jakovich.
So, So, and at the end of the day, there's that angst and that against them, against us, and it's just a friendly rivalry. They still haven't won a premiership, so until they win one, Eagles have always got that over them, and that's the same little story. My question is to you: how does a Victorian end up going for West Coast Eagles?
As I said to you, just the way it is.
Did you hear that question?
I heard it. How about if I said to you? How about if I said to you?
Did you follow someone before West Coast?
Yeah, I was like you. I was stupidly Essendon.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, well, that's it. Look, I'll tell you what it was. And this is what I tell people with regards to the connection to WA is a case of, I think, home, where you feel the spiritual home is, and this is where we talk next level.
Yep.
I think that's where I started my journey back in '96. I think it was 95, we were in 95 or 96. Walking down, it was actually in Freo. Sorry to say that. It was in Freo. That's when it all sort of started, sort of clicked in, and then sort of that where it all came into fruition with me, where I was spiritually born.
Right.
If you get where we're going. So we're going more like I call myself here a hang on, what's the word? I was going to say something, I won't say it now. First thing that comes to my mind, if I actually pause, I know I'm saying something that shouldn't be said. Everyone knows this. Permanent residence is my word.
All right.
Permanent resident. But so that's where it was. It's like watching Morris Rioli and all those. And you watch the WA versus Victoria State of Origin back in the 80s, and I've stated that in my book, Journey with Whitefeather. I'm a self-promoter. There you go, Journey with Whitefeather. Watch that. You can read about my struggles and times, and you can actually talk about how Perth is a big part of my life. Watching Morris Rioli, watching Peter Bozzusto, all the big names that were playing for WA, and I think it was funny. It was really funny. I look at the footy they used. It's the red and white ball they were using back in the 80s, and I just found that fascinating for some reason because you got the ones in Victoria that were, I think they're all, were they Sharon? What were you guys using? Were you guys using Sharon?
No, we were using Burleys and Faulkners. So Faulkner was more South Australian, I think. But
yeah, I think so. That's right. Yeah, but Burley, it was Burley, wasn't it?
And Burleys, and they still use Burleys now. I'm not going to lie, they're a shit ball. Sorry, they're a shit ball. They're like they're light. They're very light. They're like you probably can kick further with them, but they're very light. And then amateur level it was Faulkner for a while, and then it becomes Sharon. I personally like the Faulkner ball because it was more pointed. It's amazing that it's not a bigger brand than what it is. I don't know if they still use it in South Australia, but Sharon, it's a good ball. So, but it's weird that the state leagues do use different balls. So, and that's probably why when you look at some of the kicking from players these days, it's not that great. And maybe it's because that different. Do
you think it's a ball?
Using different balls.
Do you think it's a ball? Do you think it's biomechanics, or do you think it's like over? Look,
I think it's a bit of everything.
I've got the thing with I've got a degree in applied science and all those things, so I understand the biomechanics and all that stuff. But coming from someone who just watches a lot of footy like yourself, what's your opinion? Sorry to cut you off there too, my friend.
I just think it's a lot of things. People don't. I don't think kicking's probably as predominant as it used to be. Like when you used to go to footy training, you'd be kicking goals after training. Did they do that anymore? You don't really hear much of people doing it. There might be one or two people who are doing it. You look at how people kick it. Like tonight, I was watching the game before we come on the podcast, and the guy's like 30 meters out, and he's on a slight angle, but he turns his body sideways to kick the ball.
Oh, Harry Mackay.
No, this was.
No, I'm saying Harry Mackay. Harry Mackay's a classic for it. Yeah.
Well, he's exactly. And I'm like, what are you doing? Just kick through the ball. It just comes down to techniques. Everyone's different. I just don't think there's a big emphasis on it anymore, and that's why the kicking looks shit the skills look shit. But that could just me being old and biased. That
I'll tell you what.
the
I'll tell
kicking
you one
levels
thing.
were better.
I'll tell you one thing. I reckon, and we go about people on the mark. I'm gonna actually get a clip of this. I reckon people on the mark, right? I reckon people don't go back far enough. I really do. Yeah. I reckon they go, I'm going to get closer, but then they go up and under. If you actually drop back another 10 meters, I think Lance Franklin wasn't bad at it.
But he's an arc, so he's a bit different. You saying that last year, just being at a ground, I don't know if you see it as much on TV,
right?
But when you're at a ground and you see it live, like Jack Darling, for example, last year, I was sitting there with my son and he's going, oh, he's a bit close to the mark. I go, he's too close to the guy on the mark. He's not going to kick it through the ball and it's not going to go anywhere. So, yeah, people just don't get their distances right. It's a bit of everything, like I said. But there's some great kickers out there. There's some beautiful kicks out there. You watch Hawthorn, some of their kicking from some of their players is unbelievable. The Eagles back in 2018, that they won a premiership on precise kicking.
Yeah, the kicker was unbelievable.
You know, it's precision. So it ebbs and flows, I guess, with the differences in your way you play footy, I guess.
Well, it was a good kick by Sheed, wasn't
it? Beautiful kick.
It was a beautiful kick. Okay, we'll keep talking about AFL footy. What is the greatest game? We'll compare here. What is other than Dom Sheed kicking that goal? We both agree on that. Other than that, what was the greatest game of footy you believe? I've got two that come to mind. Maybe two that come to mind.
All right, I've got three. I've got three that.
All right, go for it.
So
Wazza's top. I'll go Wazza's top three. How's that?
Right, and two of them were back to back.
Okay.
So 54 points down, I think it was, against Geelong at the Cattery in, what was it, 2006?
That's right. I remember Adam Hunter played a big part.
Yeah, and Adam Hunter, rest in peace.
Yes.
Played a big part in that. Chris Judd didn't play in that game.
That's right.
Yeah, and to me, to come back, you know, 3/4 down and you're like that far behind, that to me just always stuck in my memory. And then the following week against Carlton back at our dung heap at CB and same thing, 44 points down, same thing. It's like what happens, and then all of a sudden somehow we got out of it. And then it has to be the 2006 grand final to win by a point. And I hate close finishes.
God, don't we hate them on the quiz? Oh, mate. I was there that day. I got to remember Stephen Armstrong.
And 2005. Yeah, 2005 was totally the opposite.
Hated that one. Hated that one, my friend.
Agony, but it was a great game. When you look back at it, it was a great game. And yeah, so they're the ones that just stick in my mind.
I'll give you my three. I reckon, and this is not any particular order. I reckon, yeah, definitely. And it's not taking out the 2018 grand final. That's when my daughter went for her first grand final. She's 1 for 1, and the Collingwood banner went down. She's telling me, Dad, we're 5 goals down, Dad. What's going on? I go,
I think everyone was saying that.
And I'll just go on myself. Hang on, I was in the Eagles cheer squad back in '87 when we started. I've just gone. I knew the tradition of the banner breaking, so I'm just going. All right, I'm just going to sit on it and go. Right, the banner's broken. What usually happens is that team loses. Actually, no, every time, and that's what happens, man. So, but no, I look. One of them it was 94 against Collingwood, that qualifying final at the Wacker. Oh. There's one. God, that was, mate.
Is that the one where Worsfold was getting into was he Graham Wright?
Yeah, and I think hang on, what's it
at the
same?
Wacker? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to that game at all, my friend?
Yeah, I would have been there. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, another one that I found was the preliminary final. Hang on. it was I was at this game. The preliminary final, I think it might have been 91. I think against Geelong. I think if I'm correct, off the top of my head, there was it Geelong? Oh, I got to go off the top of my head. This is the top of the head stuff. 91. It was absolutely barreling down with rain. 91 or 92. I think Glenn Jakovich went first time. Glenn Jakovich went into the ruck. He went into the Malthouse made the swing and put him in the ruck, and we ended up winning. I think we played. It was that year we played Melbourne as well, and we beat them. I think we ended up playing 91. It was 91.
Yep.
So we ended up playing that, and then we played at VFL Park, and it was absolutely teeming down. And Jakovich won the ball. Jakovich went into the ruck and absolutely poleaxed him in the end because he was just grabbing the ball and barreling it forward. I mean, they couldn't get past it. It was Rock of Gibraltar. And
yeah, I actually missed that. I missed that game. I was in hospital, so I missed that game, and I was in the hospital for the grand final as well. But I got to see that.
Yeah, and I think one of the Sydney. I think the Sydney game. Was it the Sydney game again? I think it was the Sydney game where Michael O'Loughlin went up to our mate. I think he's the leader of the cheer squad. That guy,
Daniel. Yeah,
was it Daniel? Yeah,
yep.
That game, it just sticks out in your mind because I'm sitting there watching the game because I'm obviously a couple of hours behind, and then the crowd roar. And I have to tell you, here we go. I got it. Now it's all coming back to me. Let's talk about those Port Adelaide haters. We know this because of so many part-time. What about the Luke Shuey one, that final? I did think absolutely no idea that we would have any idea of getting anywhere close, and suddenly we've got a thing. What were you thinking then, my friend?
Oh yeah, well that was unbelievable, and then we repeated it a couple of years later or the year later with Jeremy McGovern doing exactly the same thing. So.
Yeah, it's exactly that's right. We had Shuey and McGovern, you know, and I think the other one where I mean, this is coming from watching on TV. I mean, and I'm asking you because I'm sure you were there. Nat Nui's goal against North Melbourne. I think we were.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was, and actually, I was 2 blocks to the left of that.
Yeah.
And when we were watching it, I had the angle. It's like my vision was he was right in front of me, and I was watching the kick as he went off the boot, and yeah, that was brilliant. And yeah, that was awesome. That was brilliant.
What was the atmosphere like, my friend? I mean, obviously, I've been to I've been quite a few games at Subi. I remember we played. I always say to my daughter, we went and watched the. I think I probably met you one day down there, and we watched. It must have been Optus Stadium, and it was the Dockers and the Eagles, and we thought, oh yeah, it'd be close. And mate, we blew them out. Absolutely blew them out in the first quarter. We were about 8 goals up.
Yeah, it would have been Subi because I met you before then, before Optus. So yeah, but yeah, the atmosphere at all games. I just think football. That's what people love about the game. Doesn't matter who's playing, just the atmosphere. I prefer watching it live than on TV.
Yeah. Oh, I mean that's I'm the same.
I get frustrated watching it on TV, and you know, and at live you can see things happening before it happens, and I just think it's way better spectacle, and like you said, the atmosphere sells it. So,
absolutely. Have you do you find when you go to a game, and this is a little bit off topic to a point, I love sitting up the top because I love the strategy of the stuff, just watching where they run and just looking at different moves and looking at what's actually happening. I guess 2 kicks forward of what's actually happening at the time.
Yeah, see, I'm totally different. I've always been on the boundary, in the middle. I have to be in the middle of the ground.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I was not right on the boundary, but like about 10 rows back. And I've always been that guy on a footy. But you know, sometimes I have sat up the top and behind the goals, and you see football different at different levels. Like as you said, if you're up high, you can see the game unfolding. You can see the running patterns. You can see all that stuff. But I know I feel like I get more invested in the game if I'm closer to it because you feel like you're a part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fair enough.
And it's like, and you yell a bit, and you're thinking, oh, yeah, they're not listening to what I'm saying, but they can't hear. So,
well, I'll tell you a funny story. I went to back about, I think it was 1996. I went to see Sydney and West Coast Sydney. I think I saw a double head. I think I saw David Weerapunda's first game against I saw David Weerapunda's first game. I think Carey went up to him and sort of gave him a little bit of a jostle. You know what I mean? And we end up winning. I think it was that Djakovic Carey. That Djakovic Carey with Jewel was there. But I remember when Weira got the ball and the crowd went absolutely ape shit when he got the ball. And I think he kicked the goal in the first quarter. And I remember him, you know, and then because I remember he didn't want to be there, he wanted to go home, all those kind of things. You know what I mean? But very, very interesting. And then the next time, Mr. Darren Creswell, and I think in my younger years, I was, you know, we weren't using any abusive language, but you know, I was telling him that maybe his choice of shoes weren't the best, and he actually had a crack at me back. Because he had a bit of a crack at me. I said, "His shoes are good." I told him pretty much to go get some high heels. We'll leave it at that. And and he had an absolute crack at me back. It was I was about 4 rows from the front, you know. But it's quite funny you say that because do you think that people? Do you think these days? Do you think players hear a lot of that stuff? Because I mean, they see a lot of social media, and that's why I'll give you a 2-part question. Do they hear it when we're actually playing? And number 2, how do you think they're coping with social media pressures now with fans and all that? What's your opinion on it? Because I mean, you're pretty close. You work with the Waffle a fair bit. How do you see it?
Yeah, I reckon that. Well, definitely at a Waffle game, players would hear it. At an AFL game, yeah, it depends on how big the crowd is, you know what I mean? But like players have said they hear things. And, you know, it's probably when the ball's down the other end, you're always going to have somebody's had a few to drink and they're always going to have a crack at you. But I think that's all part of the game because, you know, I don't think anyone, you know, unless they're really aggressive, I don't think anyone, you know, they're trying to get it under your skin, I guess.
That's it, mate. Yeah, exactly.
Like Will Schofield said, you know, somebody said, "Oh, do you rent those solar panels out?" You know, talking about his bald head and all that shit like that. So that's just part of the game, you know what I mean? But social media, I think if I was a AFL player, I wouldn't be on social media.
Yeah.
There's just too many, like we said in the part 1, is social media can be really good, but it can be really evil as well. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
There's a lot of keyboard warriors out there, and you know, I'm not going to deny it. I've had a death threat and all that, and then you find out the person's just a fake account and shit like that. So I really have empathy for AFL players, but if I was one now, I wouldn't be on social media.
Yeah.
Because it's just you don't need it. And I know they got to live lives and all that, unless it's purely private. But no, you know what things are. Nothing is truly private. You know what I mean? Yeah, playing 10 years ago, playing 20 years ago, totally different because now you go anywhere, somebody's got a phone and, you know, they're sitting there and they've got the camera.
Like you are right now. Yep.
Yeah. So they're filming you. I just find that, you know, and some people call our football players role models. Well, I've always been of the thinking they're not role models, they're footballers. Okay. They're out there playing sport. They're getting paid a lot of money, yeah. Good on them. Awesome that you get paid. You know, all of us would love to be getting paid a lot of money doing the things we love. And that's what they're doing. But are they role models? Some people say they are. I don't think they are. And I don't think they should be called role models. But in saying that, they have got a duty to carry themselves like you and me would if we're going out in the public. If you're going to go out like a dickhead, well, then the public's going to treat you like a dickhead.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's just the way it is.
Yeah. I think it's over. Sorry, keep going. Sorry, I dropped out a bit.
It's just the way it is. But yeah, social media these days, it's full on. And yeah, I'd hate to be one of those players because I know what I was like on a football field. I'd be like, you know, like Toby Green. I'd be getting fines every week and stuff like that. And
so you'd be the one that you'd be the one
back then. Well, if social media was around in my day, yeah, I think it would have been not like what I am on it now. I'd probably be
Yeah.
ultra negative and abusing people back and copping this and getting suspensions and stuff like that. So yeah, it just depends on how mature you are, how the people are around you. And that's great about our footy clubs these days. That's what they teach people to do. This is what, it's a lot of education as well. And they've got to do it because it's a brand that they're supporting out there. You know what I mean?
That's
It's their
exactly it, mate.
brand.
That's what. Well, look, I think we've got a mini brand going. I mean, I'm trying to. Obviously, we're building our brands. I mean, it's not like your big Eagles and all that stuff, but we're building a reputation on
Well,
this
that's it.
platforms as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. Everything's everything, even if it's not a job, you're putting something out there, and people view it differently. So, and however you put it out there, that's how it's going to be perceived. So, if you put it out, good, and so be it, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's So what's your let's go to the future now. Let's look at to finish off with. Let's look at the future for yourself and the podcast, and we'll go more the podcast more than what is. I mean, the Facebook groups. What it's going.
That's a discussion group.
Discussion group. Sorry about that. Yep.
Yeah. My passion is my podcast, Eagle Nation podcast page. It's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok because of you.
I'll teach you about TikTok. Don't worry, mate.
And it's on a couple of other things there as well. And the podcasts, they get put onto all different platforms. So people listen to it on Spotify, people listen to it on SoundCloud. I bounce it on SoundCloud because that's the interface I use is connected with it. But there was different times where I wanted to do it video. Like we did a video podcast called The Nest. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yes.
And then we tried that, but we just couldn't get there enough people working on it that we're going to do it in time. It was a great little product, but we just didn't have the people that could get it out on time. And you're doing it for love. So podcasting was a lot easier if it was just audio. So we could just roll up. I do it at my house one week, Wayne's one week, and then Dan's another week. So we travel a bit, and we're not close either. We're like 50 Ks away from each other.
You told me that, yeah.
So it's sort of like
dedication, mate. You must love it.
It's 100K round trip each time that we do it. So we've sort of like tried to find in the middle. So it's just finding that middle ground. We still might try and do that where we're meeting at one of my where I work. We've got a couple of offices, so different things like that. We predominantly do one show and try and do a couple of shows on that night and cut it up. But sometimes we just did one show and then we did another show via Zoom as we're doing now. But the main show's all of us in the same room talking.
What about TikTok live, mate? That's the way you got to go.
Yeah, well, I really hate the video format, so
that's fair enough, mate. I can understand that.
And it's coming around to that, so I'll get there. Don't worry, because I've been tinkering around with it, but I just got to get it right. And to me, I've got to do things the right way. I can't do it half-assed.
Nothing wrong with that.
So I try and do it the right way. And Tom makes it look so friggin' easy, but he's a big beast.
Yeah,
he's got this presence about him.
Oh, and, he's got presence. I haven't met. He knows of me, and I know of him. And don't worry, he'll see this, and we'll give him We'll go the big. It's going to be the Big Tom Appreciation Podcast. So, Big Tom, mate, you're getting a shout out from me, and I want you on this podcast. Care of this great man above me.
Well, he'll do it because I'll make him because he owes me a couple because I owe him a couple. But he's my mentor. So he's a great friend, but he's my mentor as well. And and that's
quickly. Okay, tell us a little bit about that, mate. We'll finish off with that. I
briefly said it in the first part how I met him, and and then I was going through a dark patch, and he said, well, he's a mind coach, not just a personal trainer. And he said, come and do one of my workshops. So I did it. And after that, never looked back. I said, just stop making excuses. And, and it was I found out he hadn't been doing it for ages. It was one of his first workshops he's ever done. And now he does a couple a year, and he's built a business around it. So, and if I can direct anyone towards anyone for a mentor, I direct them towards him. So, and he's well, you'll get him on, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but he's a guy with a big heart, too big a
Yes,
heart sometimes.
I already know him, mate. I've seen him on.
But like you know him through mutual mates, and well, we all met through football. So like I met you through football, I met you through Benji, and I
Yeah.
met Benji through football, like just from being on the football pages, and you it's like you build these friendships and experiences, and it's all through something that's mutual that is like, and that's just an extension of it. So, and I'm sure next time, well, yeah, we'll talk about off air about him getting him on, but he's somebody that I look up to, and he's I think a lot of other people should. If he was connected to an AFL football club, he'd be massive, mate.
I already
You know what I
tell
mean? 'Cause
he's aura when he does his show. I mean,
it's just a belief.
yes,
And my motto always has been believe in your vision, right? But I never acted on it. So, and he said, "What is your motto in life?" And I said, "Believe in your vision." He goes, "Well, start doing what you're doing." You know what I mean? Believe in it, because if you believe in it, it'll come naturally. And ever since then, that's what I've been doing. So,
absolutely. Well, we're gonna wind this one up. Wazza, thank you so much for being involved, mate. As I said to you, it was I called it right. Brilliant interview, my friend. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
You're too nice a person, bro. But thanks for very much.
No. This is, mate. As I said to you, you're a wonderful human being. I mean, we've had many chats,
yeah.
And as I said, you get to meet this man. He's a leader of the community of the West Coast Eagles for starters, but his knowledge.
I hate that word leader, but I really, really hate that word leader.
You're a good mentor. You're a good mentor to everyone else.
Yeah. So like, because I think I know what you're saying, and I appreciate it, and it's cool. But I just like, I sort of was the face of those things, and because I was the only one that did it. But now I sort of like, there's a word here comes these cliches again. No INT. I should have been a coach.
Still could be, mate. You still can be.
Nah. I've been a basketball coach for one game, and that was enough. I've always had I used to joke about, the word there's no I in team.
Yep.
Right, and I believe that because things happen. If people want to do things individually, they can still do it. Don't get me wrong, because there's got to, like, certain people can do it individually, but some people need a team around them. They need a core group around them. And I'm one of those people that I flourish off other people and bounce things off other people. So that's the way I go about things. But in saying that, my saying when I was younger was, there's no I in team, but there's 5 in individual brilliance.
Let's write that one down. I'm going to write that one down. 5 in individual brilliance. Love it.
And that's why I got called KB, because I was an individual.
I mean, Mark Jackson, I'm an individual.
So, but all these little things you grow and you learn from life, and so that's it.
No worries. Well, do you want to give us a quick plug for all your especially the podcast? You want to give us a quick plug on that one?
Well, podcast is on weekly from when the season started. So it started this week for the Eagles. So we did our first one on Monday. It's usually released every Monday night. If we do a second show, we release it on Wednesday or Thursday. The first one's usually recapping the game that we just played. The second show, if we don't do a full show, it was broken up, be preview of the coming game. We try and get as much info out of the club as possible, but what they're like. A lot of AFL clubs are in-house now, so they have their own media groups. So we try and find out what we can and push it out to one. And every now and then we do a little different podcast here and there mid-season and stuff like that. But weekly for the footy season, and then in the off season we had this one off, but next season we'll be doing our normal draft specials, trade specials, and that. And once upon a time there was only a couple Eagles podcasts, but there's quite a lot of them out there now. So, and I'm hoping to get on a couple of them because a couple have approached me to come on. So I'll probably guest on a couple. And
I reckon you should. 100%.
And then And if you're into footy, there's a guy in America called Craig Wessels who does a podcast called A Yank on the Footy. And for
what's that? What's that? Yanked on the footy.
Yeah, his name's Craig Wessels. I go on his show every year, do a preview. He gets a person from every football club's podcast.
Yep.
Supporter podcast, unauthorized podcast. And I'm telling you, for a person who lives in America, he's a teacher. Have a listen to his shows because he's got a lot of knowledge. Only problem is he goes for the Cats. So maybe
can't be perfect.
Maybe you should chase him up because he'd be.
I think he might,
man.
I think he might.
Got a good backstory. And you meet these guys. I would never met that guy unless I was doing a podcast. I'd never heard of him. So there's heaps of guys. There's heaps of them in Victoria doing. There's heaps of supporter podcasts out there, and if you follow a team, get behind your supporter podcasts because they're the ones that have got the passion, and
right.
See how it goes.
Absolutely.
Be whatever sport you're into. So. Easy as.
Absolutely. Well, Wazza, thank you so much for being on a chat with Jay. Remove the mask, write the story. You wrote your story, remove your marks. Thank you so much. I know you don't like video, but mate, I really appreciate you. The insight you had was amazing. And I was dead right when I came to say, I've got to get this guy on. So, guys, jump on Eagle Nation. Talk to Wazza King if you want to jump. If you're a West Coast fan from WA, jump on West Coast Next Generation or apparently, make sure you jump on Eagle Nation, support that, give it a like, share it. It's a fantastic podcast. And this has been a chat with Jay. If you want to jump on, like, subscribe, and share on my channel, Journey of a Whitefeather. And I always finish from with my hero. I met him on my 50th birthday, Bret the Hitman Hart. I say, be the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. The Pig and Black attack's back. We all hope the Eagles win a fair few games this year. But thank you very much, Wazza, and we look forward to seeing you soon on a chat with Jay. Thanks very much.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
I'd like to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver, and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show.